I
Yeah.
touched on the last topic. I remember there's an area that we've missed out on,
Mm-hmm.
and it relates to bursary. I am aware I cannot speak on it in detail because I do not have my notes with me, but I
Yeah.
think about 330 million that was meant to be used as bursary, according to the auditor's report, it cannot be accounted for. They cannot trace which student was paid for. They
Yeah.
cannot trace which school it was paid to.
Right.
Please talk through it, and then we can now proceed to go to the closing point.
So, you know, I have spent, I think I have looked at least maybe 40 counties out of the 47 that we have.
Yes.
There are a lot of bad things happening in government, but I don't think that there's anything that I've seen that is more callous as what's happening when it comes to these bursaries.
Mm,
So I want you to think about the fact that we started with saying that the county government of Nairobi had a budget of 33 billion. They
yes.
spent 670 million on bursaries. So out of 33
Yes.
billion, they budgeted spending 670 million on bursaries. I want you to remember that the county government of Nairobi has 4.6 million people.
Yes.
So think about all the people in Mathare, people in Kibera, people in Isili, people in all these places where the average income is very low, right? These
Yes.
people need the opportunities to be able to send their kids to school. The
Yes.
county that has 33 billion to spend
Mm-hmm.
decided that they're going to spend 55% of income on themselves, decided
Yes.
that over and above that, they're going to spend 1.2 billion running around from Marrakesh, Morocco to Vancouver, BC to Dubai to learn conflict management and personal
Yes.
branding, spending 1.2 billion in that process.
Yes.
Then they put aside 670 million for bursaries to be divided, to be shared across the
Okay.
county that has 4.6 million people.
Yes.
Think about what that is saying, right?
Yes.
The it defies it defies credibility. You know, how do you make decisions like that and not even have any shame? How do you
Yes.
spend 1.2 billion on travel for yourself and
Yes.
not see how bad it looks for you to spend 670 million on bursaries in a country where one out of five people is poor in the country of Nairobi, where
Yes.
a lot of people need this bursary to be able to send their kids to school. Then out
Yes.
of these 670 million people, 300 of it cannot be accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking about. So they put aside 670 million, but when the auditor says, show me the beneficiary of this amount, 301 million cannot be accounted for. These politicians want you to think that awarding bursaries is the same as showing up on church on Sunday with a bunch of candy and passing around. That's not how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to apply for a bursary, there's a process. You take a form, you complete it. They're supposed to look at, you know, the information that you put down. They're supposed to make an assessment of your need, right? And then you get awarded. How is it that if that's a process, how do you not have any details for 301 million in bursaries? If it's not there, it means it doesn't exist, right?
Yes.
And this is sad, man. I mean, if you follow me, you know that I spent the last 1 month talking about one kid from my county of Kiambu who
Owen.
touched me. Yes, Owen is a guy who's 20 years old, raised by his grandfather and grandmother who are 90 and 80 years old. Grew up in very difficult circumstances.
Yes.
Everyone tells him the way out of this situation is to be able to get an education. He
Education.
gets accepted to Egerton, and he sits at home for a month and a half. He's applied for CDF bursaries. He's gone from one politician's office to the next, applied for scholarship and CDF, and is not successful. We tell him
Yes.
we don't have a spot for him. Okay. In a year where last year 68 billion shillings was spread across the country in this CDF, 68 billion. Okay. I told you that our country last year spent 1.9 trillion on debt service, right? We spent 68 billion
Yes.
in bursaries, and we don't have a spot for Owen to be able to go to school. And he only needed like 100,000 in terms of, the tuition that he had to pay out of pocket and food. So this kid is sitting at home for a month and a half because he cannot raise 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I just told you
Mm-hmm.
that Nairobi spent 18 billion of its revenue on themselves, They spend
Mhm.
670 million on bursaries, but 300 of it cannot be accounted for. This
Mhm.
alone to me says
Mm,
everything you need to know about our country, about, you know, you almost have to be an animal, like to be able to conduct yourself this way and not have any shame.
Mhm.
It's very devastating.